What's up everybody? Phil here with Bullcity Pictures. Today we're going to do a review on the Panasonic G80 or G85 depending on where you are here in the US. It's the G80. This is a micro four thirds camera. It is an upgrade to the G7, which I'm using and actually filming this video on. So we'll go over some of the differences from the G7 to the G8. But this is a micro four thirds camera, shoots 4K video, 16 megapixel sensor, comes with a new 12-60 lens, which they've just added to the lineup. It seems like it's pretty robust, a fair bit better than the previous kit lenses. Certainly gives you better range with 12-60, which is the 35mm equivalent of 24-120. So it's a good walking around lens, a good travel lens. I plan to use this when I go down to Florida as my travel camera. Some of the big differences between this and the G7 is the addition of in-body stabilization. So now it's got 5-axis image stabilization, much like some of the Olympus cameras now have. So you can take this lens, which actually has stabilization, and the image stabilization from the body, and combine that to dual image stabilization, something they call dual IS, which is great for video. This is going to be mostly focused on photography. If you'd like to see video, there are plenty of other YouTube reviews out there on video. It does do 4K 30p video. The video I've shot with it has been great. Great video. There's no time limit on recording video. On the G7 there's a 20-minute or 29-minute time limit for recording video. So this is, again, it's going to be, for me, primarily a camera that I'm going to use for photography. I'm trying to replace my Nikon systems. One of the things I like about micro four thirds systems in this camera is that for micro four thirds you can buy an adapter to adapt Nikon lenses, and I have quite a few Nikon lenses that I use that I can adapt with they call it a dumb adapter, a $20 adapter, which will basically just allow the lenses to physically fit together. And then you can take those Nikon lenses and use them. Now, you won't get autofocus with the cheap adapters, but you will, with the addition of the in-body stabilization, you will now have a stabilized lens. One of my favorite lenses is a Samyang 85mm f1.4. So I can put this f1.4 on here, which is a manual focus lens anyway, and put this on here and actually have a stabilized 85mm portrait lens at f1.4, which will give me some blown out backgrounds. It's really great. I'll include some pictures in the future if I have a future review. I didn't use that lens on the review that I'm going to show with you today. I just took this kit lens around, so I wanted to show you what the kit lens could do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire up Lightroom. I'm going to show you some of the samples and some of the pictures that I took while I was out. Again, I live in Durham, North Carolina, so I went down to American Tobacco and got some pictures of different places downtown and American Tobacco. We'll come back with my conclusions, my advantages and disadvantages, likes and dislikes after we view these photos. Okay, I want to point out that these are all straight out of the camera JPEGs that came right from the camera with the standard profiles, nothing really done to them to make them look any better or any different. These are some shots from the American Tobacco campus. You can see the color looks, well, you might not be able to tell, the color looks pretty real compared to what it was. Very, very sharp. These are all taken at around ISO 200. Shutter speeds anywhere from 1,000 to 4,000 depending on the scene, but you can see again in this one another picture of American Tobacco from a different vantage point. Sky is a little different, light has changed a little bit here, but these are pretty solid pictures. You can see here is one taken from above. Again, nice colors, nice clarity. It really seems to do a great job with pictures as long as you're at the lower ISOs. Again, these are all taken at 200. It's a very bright day there. So there was no need to really push the ISO. And I'm not going to do ISO tests because other people will do that. But here's some more shots of American Tobacco. If you want to see ISO tests, I'm sure you can see them out there. I try to do real world. And today in the real world, the pictures were at ISO 200. There was no need to change the ISO. The lighting was great. Plenty of light. No need to worry about that. One of the things that really impressed me was that it has the ability to be able to bracket for you automatically. So you can set it up to do 5 shots, 3 shots, and you can set it whether it does a third a stop, half stop, quarter stop, and you'll be able to create these images, HDR images, which I'll show a couple HDR images that were created with with Adobe Lightroom. But again, you can see these pictures, they came out pretty well. The exposure seems to be pretty spot on. In some cases I did overexpose on purpose, like this sky here. But again, overall, for straight out of the camera JPEG pictures, these look to me pretty solid. Color reproduction, again, is really, really good. It also has a focus stacking, which I didn't use here, but you can actually take pictures. You can take one, quote-unquote, one picture of something that requires a lot of depth of field, and it will put it together in one image for you. So those are the images that I took. Now it's time for my conclusions on what I think about this Panasonic G85. One of the major disadvantages I find if you're shooting video is where they put the mic port. And you can see here that the microphone port is now right basically where you would flip the screen out. And if you're trying to move this with the microphone attached, you won't be able to do it very easily. Now there's a workaround. You can just kind of tilt it back and shift it that way, but it's different from where it was on the G7. On the G7, the microphone port was actually above the flip-out screen, so the flip-out screen didn't get into the way. I have to say, from a photography perspective, it seemed to be a great camera. It handled very well. It handled much like my Nikon digital SLRs. Really good job. I shot in pretty good lighting conditions. I will say in low light it doesn't seem to do as well as some of my crop sensor Nikon cameras or my full sensor Nikon camera, which you wouldn't really expect based on the sensor size. Micro Four Thirds is a smaller sensor, but I'd say that it held up pretty well. And if you're going to push it, you can probably get usable shots somewhere around 1600 or so if you get your exposure correct, which, you know, it's not phenomenal, but it'll do, especially for a travel camera and you need something in a pinch. The great thing is that not only does this shoot great stills, but if you want to do vlogging or if you just want to take some video in 4K, the 4K video is phenomenal. The stabilization with this is phenomenal. Again, if you want to, some other reviews will get more in depth about that, but the stabilization is just terrific. And I found that even with a stabilized lens, obviously it's great, but with a lens that I've adapted, it works as well. It works pretty well as well. You're not going to get the same amount. I think you probably get about 4 stops or so with the dual image stabilization, with the stabilized lens and the in-body, and without the stabilized lens, let's say using a Nikon lens, you'll probably get between 2 and 3 stops of light, which is still great. It'll get you, you know, you can set those shutter speeds so that you don't have to really increase the ISO, so low noise doesn't become as big an issue. And I would say that, you know, given that, you can kind of take the trade-off for low noise. It's such a compact package. It's very light. I'm not sure exactly what it weighs. You can look the specs up on that, but it's a really light package that you can carry around. And this one lens, the 12-60 kit lens, I found to be pretty good. I did find there were some chromatic aberrations, but nothing that couldn't be corrected in software. But overall, the range is great. Seemed to be fairly sharp for a kit lens. Really impressed with this entire package. This is the Panasonic Lumix G85 here in the US, G80 in other parts of the country, and really a good all-around camera. And in fact, I would almost say a great all-around camera if you discount if you don't really have the need to shoot high ISOs or, you know, in low lights. This is a perfect camera. Again, for travel, it's great. You can take it around, and hopefully most of the time when you're traveling, you'll have great weather. So please leave me your comments about this review, comments about the camera if you use the camera, what you like, what you dislike. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I don't necessarily do videos on a very regular basis, but hopefully that will change in the future. So if you subscribe and click on that little bell, you'll get all the updates in the future. I appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you again soon in the next review.